Now here in Bolton, as with elsewhere in England, the easing of lockdown will continue as planned on Monday, and the hope is that there will be no need to revert to any localised restrictions, because of course this is an area that has been under localised COVID restrictions longer than many other places in the country.
And in places like Bolton and Bedford, local health officials have called for all over 18s to be vaccinated in the hotspot areas. Yet Professor Adam Finn from the Joint Committee on Vaccination and Immunisation explains why that's not going to happen.
This is something of a balancing act, isn't it? The truth is that a dose of vaccine given to one person is a dose of vaccine not given to another. At least certainly the vaccines that we're offering to people under the age of 40, the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines at the moment. So we do need to figure out what's the best use to be made of the doses that we have available. And we have to bear in mind that giving vaccines is not an instant remedy for an outbreak. It does take some time. I was very impressed with the vaccine bus that we just saw and people queuing up. But nevertheless, any of those people receiving a first dose of vaccine today won't really start to get any benefit of protection for at least 2 or 3 weeks from now. And that's really quite slow. So we do need to use the vaccines around the country to try and stop, to try and protect populations, to stop these outbreaks from happening. And we do need to try and focus on primarily giving the vaccine doses to people who are most likely to get sick.
Right, so it sounds like you're saying giving the vaccine to all over 18s now would not stop this outbreak in places like Bolton and Blackburn, because it takes a few weeks for immunity to kick in.
That's right. It would not be an instant remedy by any means at all, and it would mean that other people elsewhere, or even in Bolton, had not received those doses. So the supply of vaccines is, in fact, of the 3 potential limiting factors, is the main one at the moment. There's no shortage of NHS staff to give these vaccines, and as you just saw in that film, there's no shortage of people coming forward to receive vaccines. But we do have to use the vaccines that we've got as judiciously as we can to try and protect the whole population against a further wave and further sickness and death.
Right. But over 50s, by and large, having the AstraZeneca vaccine, aren't they? Whereas younger people under 40s are having Moderna and Pfizer. So it's not like if you give it to an 18-year-old, you're depriving an over 50 of a second dose because they're having different vaccines.
No, that's right. The person you're depriving when you give a vaccine to a 20-year-old is a 38-year-old.
Fine, understood.
And that 38-year-old is just as likely to be transmitting the infection to other people, but actually is much more likely to get seriously ill if they get the infection.
I don't understand why the second jab for over 50s is being brought forward from 12 weeks to 8 weeks, because we were told that if you leave it for 12 weeks, actually it's better protection.
Yeah, you're right. It's a very delicate judgment, this, and if things had gone on as they had been, we would have been leaving that delay as it was. In fact, it in practice was more like 10 or 11 weeks rather than 12 that the doses were being given. But in the current circumstance, with this uncertainty, but the threat of a third wave being brought forward sooner, getting that extra boost in the short term outbalances the benefit of giving the dose slightly later and getting slightly more protection and long-term protection later. So it is a very tricky judgment to work out what's the best thing to do. But we really are now concerned about the possibility of an accelerated and larger third wave, and we want to try and ensure against that as quickly as we can.
What's your view about the plan for England, anyway, for restrictions being completely loosened on June the 21st? Now we're talking about this Indian variant spreading.
Well, I think it's a big question mark as to how things will go. I know that's going to be bad news for a lot of people, particularly businesses planning to get back into business again. But I think all along this so-called roadmap has been provisional on how things go with the program, how things go with the epidemic. And so I guess we just have to wait and see what happens now not only in Bolton, Bedford and London, but right across the country over the next 2 or 3 weeks. And if things go pear-shaped, then plans will have to be changed.